Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for Infoblox's Technical Reporting and Analytics Demo Series. Today, we're going to be showcasing the top 5 reports for powerful insights and analytics. And with me today is Roger Barlow, our Senior Product Manager for DDI, located in Santa Clara, California. Also, Steve Silo, our Senior Solutions Engineer, also located in Santa Clara. And my name is Bob Rose. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Infoblox, located in our Tacoma office. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Bob. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you.
So to kick things off, guys, when it comes to network, how critical is visibility? Roger, you have some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So visibility is super critical. In fact, the title of this is the top 5 reports. We really had a hard time narrowing it down to 5 with over 100 reports out of the box. But we took a stab at it anyways. And the reason it's critical is with a system like Infoblox and NIOS, it's really designed for real-time high performance, right? So the database itself isn't designed for historical archiving and reporting. It's really just designed to let you know what the state of everything is in case there's something wrong. And that's where reporting and analytics comes in and provides the sort of historical visibility. It gives you not only the current state of the state, what's going on, but it also gives you the past and even gives you the future. So having that visibility across all 3 time spans it gives you a bigger picture about what's going on, allows you to make comparative decisions about what it used to look like compared to what it looks like now, compared to what it might look like in a few months using predictive analytics.
And Steve, what do you think in terms of security? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Roger's absolutely right about visibility and getting into the heart of it. But another question is, how do you stop bad actors from stealing data or infecting your systems? If you're relying on manual processes and disparate solutions across the network to run and analyze the traffic and the logs and different things that are going on, how do you make fast and accurate decisions to ensure you really have the application security, availability, and performance you need?
And
yep. Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
No, I was just going to add to that. And the other thing about it is, I mentioned we have over 100 reports out of the box, right? So we've already done the heavy lift of taking all of that data that's produced by your DDI environment and turning it into useful insights, like Steve talked about around security, but also around how DDI is performing, what your network utilization looks like over time, and so on and so forth. And we'll show the top 5 reports around that data set as we go forward.
Well, thanks so much, guys. That's a great kind of insight to get us kicked off. Let's then kind of move forward and look at today's agenda. So we're going to be spending a few minutes to talk about the critical business concerns that a lot of companies face. We're going to look at the core network services as well as solving some of the business challenges that they face. We'll spend some time on the simplified, cost-effective deployment around reporting and analytics, and we're going to then look at some sample reports, and ultimately, the star of the show today is really the top 5 reports and dashboard, and then we'll wrap up with some promos and resources and opportunities in some of the Q&A that you have. Now, please hold your questions. We'll actually get to the Q&A section at the end. But if you do want to share a question, you can actually do that through the chat window. And also, when we get to the Q&A section, you'll be able to unmute your microphone as well, and just speak out your question. In addition to that, we will have some polling questions today, and we'll look for your feedback on that. So by the time we're done, you'll really know the top 5 pre-built reports and the dashboard integrations that really deliver a wealth of core DDI network services data on demand. You'll have a complete visibility to the network anytime, any place through the reporting and analytics solution. And then how do you detect DNS-based threats and solve problems faster with current and historical views? And ultimately, you'll know how to use automation to simplify and reduce some of the audit time and compliance. And then one of the other key advantages is using predictive analytics to ensure business continuity as you plan for future requirements. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our 4 critical business concerns. You know, if you look at it from the standpoint, as Roger mentioned, across the continuum of time, there are things that have happened on the network, there are things that are happening on the network, and things that will happen with regard to the network. And you know, there are challenges when trying to manage the core services across the network. If you need to prove compliance for an audit, for example, how easy is it to track and report what happened over time? Such as which IP addresses were in use a week or a month ago, and which end users had, you know, DHCP leases. So, or what if there's a problem happening now with an application typically on the network? You know, it's the first to blame, and how easy can you identify if DNS or DHCP is impacting application availability? So app uptime and performance is really critical, and to be able to have visibility to see that is very important. And then of course, with security getting more and more proactive, how easy is it to identify if end devices have security vulnerabilities or might be using DNS as a way to communicate with a botnet host, or stealing and exfiltrating critical data via DNS. And ultimately, since DNS and DHCP are so critical to the network, identifying when current capacity might not meet future requirements is often a tedious and error-prone process. So again, when dealing with these challenges across the network, reporting analytics really helps solve these problems, again, that occur in the past and are happening now, and of course, from a planning perspective, being able to maintain business continuity in the future. So Roger, let's take a look now and see how reporting and analytics optimizes core network services.
Sure. So obviously with DDI, you've got a ton of information about what's going on in your network. You know who's getting on, who through DHCP information, you know where they're going through DNS information, and you get a really good picture of what network and DHCP range utilization looks like with IPAM. So there's a ton of information out there, and of course, just with those 3 areas, there's a ton of potential for building visualization and insights and optimizing that data set so that you can be more proactive about making sure that those services are running optimally. But also with Infoblox's other products that surround those protocols and add value to those protocols, there's even more to report on, right? So when you think about our technologies around network automation with Network Insight, you know, we're going out and able to manipulate switch ports. So there's change history. We're discovering virtual networks and virtual infrastructures through virtual machines. So we're able to report on that as well. We've got layer 2 and layer 3 network discovery, where we're going out and talking to switches and pulling their configurations. All that information gets put into our reporting solution as well. We've got integrations with Microsoft, where we are able to manage even servers that are running Microsoft protocols. So if you've got both Infoblox and Microsoft in your environment, we can provide a single pane of glass for managing that. But in addition to that, we also go out and interact with Microsoft servers and pull all of the same metrics, almost all of the same metrics that we do with our own protocol services, and then provide single pane of glass reporting on that as well. So there's a ton of information just above and beyond the core DDI that Infoblox adds and provides additional insights on as well.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. So if we look across reporting and analytics, you know, there are some real values in terms of having deep visibility into the DDI ongoings on your network. And, you know, in terms of audit compliance, we mentioned that just a moment ago, but in terms of visibility into the core DNS data, you can slice and dice graphs. You can have pie charts. You can drill down into HTTP details. You can ingest feeds from some of the best in breed partners and centralize security views all in one solution. So that's really an advantage. There's also app availability and performance benefits because you can view and measure the DDI detail to monitor core network services supporting business critical apps. In addition to that, from a security standpoint, as Steve mentioned just a moment ago, being able to get visibility into core DNS data and security by drilling into the network detail logs and finding root cause to problems much faster, enables you to better manage the network. And then of course, capacity planning, viewing past data sets, seeing what's coming through, appliances, using predictive analytics to warn the customer when they might be expecting an outage or another problem, and being able to track and trend and predict those key capacity parameters to ensure that the key network services will be available in the future. These are all advantages from reporting analytics. In addition to that, though, we have query logging capability that really provides an advantage in terms of security forensics. So you can get detailed query history of infected clients. You can get security and audit access logging visibility, so you can see queries by clients and domains, who accessed what and what was accessed by whom. And then ultimately, from an audit compliance perspective, we maintain history logged up to 2 years, right? So can you imagine coming in and being asked by the audit team to provide that kind of information and to have historical logging of device and domain query records right at your fingertips? So these are all some of the business challenges that reporting and analytics and query logging can help with. So Roger, can you give us some insight onto how deployment works and how it integrates with the Infoblox Grid?
Absolutely. So all of this capability that Bob and I have been talking about seems like it would take a great deal of time to deploy, but it's actually quite simple given the Infoblox Reporting and Analytics or the Infoblox appliance model, right? So this solution is delivered just like an appliance, any other grid appliance. You simply power the appliance on or deploy the VM and then join it to the Infoblox Grid, and it just self-configures and completely self-provisions itself. It's very simple, and the infrastructure itself for reporting analytics is designed to scale. So we have clustering capability that allows you to do two things. One is set up HADR, so provide redundancy for the cluster. And that can be single site or multi-site. But also, as part of that clustering capability, it allows you to scale the retention capacity by adding more nodes, and also to scale the indexing capacity. So, and also adding nodes to a cluster is just as simple as, again, adding another appliance, tweaking a couple of screens into the NIOS UI around the cluster configuration, and then you've got the clustering. So it's very simple to add the Infoblox Reporting Analytics solution to your grid, and also very simple to scale it to meet your needs. Bob pointed out, for example, the query logging capability that we have. Well, query logging can be very intensive depending on how many queries per second you have. If you're doing, just 100 queries per second versus 200 queries per second, well, that amount of data that gets scaled over time is significantly different. So that's one of the advantages that clustering offers is allowing you to be able to add more capacity to handle that indexing, and adding more nodes to the cluster, which creates more disk, which results in longer retention times.
All right, well, now we'd like to shift gears for a moment and get some feedback from you. We'd like to ask you our first polling question, and you can see that up on your screen now. So what's the most important reason at your company for using reporting and analytics? And really, we'd like you to pick the top answer. So go ahead and look over those questions. And again, we're just doing the first polling question at this time. Go ahead and select, and as we start to get some of the feedback, we'll close the polls in a minute and take a look at the results. We'll give it just about another couple of seconds here. And okay, why don't we close the polls and see. So it looks like getting audit compliance to track and report on what happened is 57%, and then security to identify DNS security vulnerabilities is at 35%, and then capacity planning is at 22%, and then app uptime and performance. So very helpful. It sounds like audit and compliance is an important topic. So thanks so much for your feedback. And now we'll go on to the next question or the next slide. And one of the biggest questions really that's asked is, if I have reporting analytics, but I already have a reporting engine like Splunk, why would I make that investment? And the reality is that if you already use a tool like Splunk, then you understand the value of detailed visibility and tracking. And so Infoblox, with our solution, it just takes it up multiple levels. First, we've integrated data collection with the Splunk engine, so you can take advantage of powerful customization and visualization options. And the big difference really is what's added. So reporting and analytics has access to data that's not available with other tools. So we built the best collection capabilities with tight integration with DDI. So you have access to information that no one else can. In addition, reporting and analytics leverages a centralized data archival technique that uses our grid technology. And so what that means is the most comprehensive data collection with a minimal amount of indexing required. And often Infoblox reporting and analytics actually uses less indexing, which means less cost than Splunk itself. In addition, instead of requiring your team to figure out which data to collect and attempt to validate, Infoblox does that for you. We live and breathe DDI, and so we provide accurate and validated results. And we also have the algorithms and predictive reports that no other platform provides. So this helps take a lot of the guesswork out of intelligence and analysis. And then finally, as Roger mentioned, we have over 100 reports out of the box with the ability to customize hundreds or even thousands of others. So instead of trying to figure out what reports might be possible, it's best to leverage the base and then customize what you need based on your requirements. So even though Infoblox uses Splunk under the hood, the key differences provide a massive value enhancement versus a do-it-yourself model. So what we'd like to do is just take a moment now and show you, these are some of the categories around the sample pre-built reports. And reporting analytics really gives you real-time management and extensive customizable historical reporting and predictive analytics. And so out-of-the-box reports, that you can open and customize and really start using today without making it a big project and pulling together resources and trying to build it all from scratch. So you can collect and analyze and visualize granular core network data. You can get free-form searches, produce interactive reports and dashboards with drill down capabilities. You can conduct detailed investigation of events, identify anomalies, use forensics to identify specific problems and collect compliance and audit data. Predictive analytics is available to model future patterns of network behavior, along with capacity planning, and then of course capturing and sharing reports via the Infoblox community and networking ideas and best practices, and managing DDI deployments with the most reliable and secure service for real-time management. And it's really advantageous, all within a single platform. So there's so much value here. I mean, the value is incredible, right? So what we want to do, we obviously can't go through all of the reports to show you, but what we wanted to do today is share with you the top 5 reports. So Roger, without further ado, can you take us through the top 5? Number 5. Here we go.
Sure. So number 5 is the DHCP lease history report. What is this report? Well, it's a log of which MAC addresses have had which IP addresses at a given point in time. Who needs it? It's useful for network and security admins, and it's important to them because it helps them understand who was where on the network, and also to correlate systems to IPs at a given point in time. So if you think about this from a network administrator perspective, maybe they just want to see how clients roam around the network. If you think about it from the security admin perspective, obviously that's really powerful if something was, let's say, infected with malware last week, and they want to see what potential IP addresses it's had over time, so that they can do some log correlation to figure out what sort of malicious activity something has been doing in the network. How do you get it? It actually comes out of the box, so nothing special is needed, and it's located on the Dashboards tab. So let's actually take a look at this report in our demo environment here at Infoblox. This is the Reporting and Analytics interface. If you've got the Reporting and Analytics license, this tab shows up here for reporting and brings you to this home dashboard when you click on it. What we're going to do actually is go into the dashboards section of this, and we're going to find the DHCP lease history. Now, I'm going to shortcut this by narrowing it down by using my search field here, and we've got DHCP lease history. This brings us right to that report that we just saw in the previous slide. Now in here, I can specify the time frame that I want to look at this data set for. I can come in, and you can see that we've built a ton of filters here that allow you to really get value out of this without having to be an expert in the Splunk backend that powers it. So I can search for all kinds of different fields here. If I want to filter by MAC address, I can do that. And just see the IP addresses that a MAC address has had. Or if I want to search by IP address, I can do that, and then look at the MAC addresses that a given IP address has had. So very powerful in doing this. Also, you'll notice that we've got this Microsoft servers box here. That means that this report is Microsoft enabled. So if you've also got Microsoft protocol serving members being managed by Infoblox, we can also flatten that information into this view and give you just a single view into all of the DHCP activity rather. But looking at this report, we can see that we've got the time that a DHCP event happened, the Infoblox or Microsoft member that handled that, what the IP address of that protocol serving device was, what the protocol the transaction happened on. We can even see the DHCP action itself. We can see the lease IP, the MAC address that took that IP address, when the lease starts, when the lease ends, and we even are using our DHCP fingerprinting capability to tell you what the operating system of that device was that made the DHCP transaction. So a good wealth of information in here. Again, very critical for network and security teams just to understand what the history of the device connectivity to the network looks like. So very powerful. That is report number 5.
Yeah, I just want to add to that too, Roger, that from a security perspective, this report is almost critical because many times security teams will need to do an investigation on an IP address that maybe had some malware on it a month ago or was performing some suspicious activity a couple months ago. And rather than having to dig through hundreds of thousands of lines of syslog trying to track it down, being able to just come into this report, punch in the IP address and look for the period of time and find the corresponding MAC address and the device and possibly even the user, depending on what options they have configured in the Infoblox solution. This really saves a lot of time.
Great, Steve. Thanks for that insight. Let's move on to report number 4. So again, we've got hundreds of reports, and depending on your business priorities, the top 5 can vary. But this is what we had for number 4 was DNS domains queried by client. So what is this report? Well, this is a report that leverages our query logging capabilities. So it's a granular query log search. Who needs it? Again, this is useful for network administrators. Maybe they're troubleshooting network devices and they want to look at the DNS query history of a given device. Or for security teams. Maybe security teams want to use this as a way to look at the query history for a given device on the network. It's important because, again, it identifies which clients are querying for which domains, or the converse of that, which show me all of the clients that are querying for, or show me all the domains that a given client is querying for. So it's important to get that visibility. how do you get it? So this one also comes out of the box. It's included with Infoblox Reporting and Analytics, but it does require a external free component that we provide called the data connector. And the reason that it requires this component is we wanted to ensure that query logging was not going to impact the grid members' ability to serve DNS and DHCP protocol. So all of the necessary crunching and processing that gets done to deliver query log, we wanted to be able to do that externally on a separate system. And again, this is a free component. It's called the data connector. It's got some great advantages in terms of, again, offloading that compute. Also, it reduces the actual volume of data by optimizing the format of the query logs before indexing them into the reporting and analytics solution. So that's important as well. Where is this report located? It's located in the dashboard tab. So let's go ahead and take a look at that also. We're already in reporting and analytics here. So we'll go to the dashboards tab. And again, I'm going to narrow this down and search for queried so that we can pull it up pretty easy. And we've got DNS domains queried by client. Now, again, this is a demo environment, so we're not going to see a lot of real-world types of data in here. Let me just adjust the time frame here, but we will see some activity which will populate it, so that will be useful. And this is going through, you notice I selected all time here. So basically, since we turned on query logging and added reporting analytics, this is going to go back and pull all of the query logs for everything. So as you can imagine, it could take some time to query through this. But what I could do here, for example, is maybe I want to filter by domain name. And maybe I'm not quite sure, but I want to, I know a domain, I want to search for domains that have DDNS in it, for example. So I can wildcard both sides of that. I don't know if it's a .net or a .com. And it's a good thing I did that because I noticed that there is some activity here for ddns.us. So again, really powerful capabilities on searching through this. You'll notice that this particular query happened in October of last year. So it came back pretty quick given all of the information that's in here. We've already got over 10 pages of search results that have come back so far. And again, I could further narrow this down. Maybe I only care about a record results. So I can narrow that down and reduce the quantity of results that come back. So again, really powerful, really quick and agile in terms of getting that visibility back. And I can see, all of the clients, what they're querying, again, the query type, what protocol member they queried through, and of course the time that they did it.
All right, so if you think about a security investigation, this makes it really easy to focus on a particular domain name that was maybe associated with some malicious activity, and you can find every single client that was querying that at a given period of time. Or you can go further and say, okay, I want to see what else this client was querying at that particular time, and you can focus on a particular client address and see everything they were querying. So again, just making it really simple and fast and easy.
Very true, Steve. Okay, on to the number 3 report. This is the DNS query rate by member. And this report shows you what the overall query volume is on a member by member basis. This is particularly useful for DDI admins, and it's particularly useful for identifying the utilization trends on the Infoblox infrastructure, or even Microsoft in this case. And gives you an idea of what the utilization trend looks like. But because you're seeing a trend here, it also becomes really easy to identify anomalies, right? So if you have a spike or some sort of dip in this graph, it's indicative that something is wrong or something's changed. This report comes out of the box, and it's also located in the dashboards tab. So let's go ahead and have a look at that. So if we go back to our dashboards tab, and we're looking at query rate by member, so I'll just narrow this down to query and scroll down to DNS query rate by member. And what we'll see is the live report that looks quite a bit like what we just saw on the screen capture. And as before, as you saw with the other couple of reports, we've got, again, some great filtering capability on here. that makes it as simple as can be. You don't have to be an expert to leverage these, to change this data set to get the types of information or narrow it down to the type of information that you need. We can filter obviously by time. Right now we're only showing the top 5, but maybe you have more Infoblox Grid members or more Microsoft servers and you want to change the top number of devices that it displays. You can do so here. Or you can narrow it down to a very specific selection of protocol members. We also have this integrated with the DNS views in NIOS. So if you only want to look at a specific view, you can select that here as well. It's also narrowed down by sites. So we have integrations with Microsoft Active Directory sites. You can select which of the sites you would like to see here. We also have extensible attribute grouping in here. So if you've used extensible attributes, we can group the outputs by those. And then, of course, we can filter it by Microsoft servers. Also, we can change the view of this. So right now we're looking at a stacked area chart. And you can see we have the trend here. As I hover, I can look at specific members, and it's stacked, right? So if I hover, so you can see that we have one member that's doing most of the DNS activity, and all the other guys are kind of not doing a lot. But as I hover over these, I can get a clearer view of who's doing what types of volume of activity. I can also switch this view over to a table view, which just gives me the hard numbers. And this kind of reaffirms what we just saw. We've got this PT 1400 member that's doing most of the activity. Everybody else is nothing or hardly anything. And we can also look at both of them, one over the other. And just as a side note, I can export this as a PDF and share it, or I could schedule this export to happen on a regular basis and deliver it via email or other methodologies. Anything to add to this, Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment. I think this is an excellent starting point to get an idea of what's going on from a DNS perspective. So you can come in and you can see what the query rates look like and look for any anomalies. And from there, we don't have time to go into all the reports, but there's a number of top X reports that you can kind of drill into after looking at this and find out. I'm seeing a lot of traffic. Who are my top talkers from a DNS perspective, or what are the top NX domains? Those types of things. So this is a great starting point to find out what's going on, and then from there you can go into other reports and pull up even more detail.
Very good. Let's move on to the number 2 report. For this one, we selected the DHCP message rate trend. So this one's important because it shows the DHCP activity by message type over time. And as you can see in the screenshot here, we're looking at the entire discover, offer, request, and ACK process. So we can really see the view of what all is going on here. Who needs it? This is useful for DDI admins just to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in DHCP environments. Also to do troubleshooting. If something seems awry, this would be a good indicator that maybe a device went crazy and is DDoSing the environment. It's important because it identifies the DHCP utilization trends and anomalies. So again, if you see a spike here or a dip, we know that something weird is going on in the environment. It comes out of the box. It's delivered as part of the over 100 reports that we provide. And it's located on the dashboards tab. So let's take a look at this in real time. We're going to come back into our dashboards tab, and we're going to look for our DHCP message rate trend. So I'm going to filter this down to message rate. And here we've got our DHCP message rate trend. We click on that. And in just a short moment, it'll start populating with data. Now you'll notice here, this is again a demo environment, so it's fairly cyclical and predictable in nature. But if we had, for example, we hear this all the time, a printer went crazy and started doing a bunch of DHCP requests. So what we would see in that sort of scenario is that this red line would spike and everything else would stay the same. And that could potentially be DDoSing your DHCP server and making it difficult for other clients on the network to get an address. That would stick out like a sore thumb in this kind of example. And again, we have the ability to filter. Maybe I only really care about that request field, so I can filter this down to only show that DHCP request activity. Maybe the other stuff is too noisy, and I just want to get a simple view. So also we can do we can overlay some of the other data types. Maybe I only care about the average trend of this because I don't care about spikes. I just want to look at how my infrastructure is changing over time. So I can overlay the average of this, which gives me some good insights as to what the average DHCP request average over time looks like. So again, some great ways to manipulate this. Like we saw before, we can keep this in a line chart, or we can look at the tabled data itself. And you'll notice that because I've selected the average, we now have the average data set in here as well. Or I can look at both of these pieces of data. Now, since we're here, I'm going to take a moment to show an advanced feature. So we've got lots of flexibility around manipulating this data set with these dropdowns. But if you do have Splunk expertise, you can get to the backend Splunk query that drives all of this data by clicking on this search screen here. And this will pull up the actual Splunk language that tells us how to produce these reports. And if you've got the expertise, you can manipulate these and really customize these in a bunch of different ways. Also, through this interface, you can get to the actual raw data set that comes from the Infoblox Grid that provides these reports. So I know this looks quite overwhelming, but if we expand this out here, we can see all of the metrics and parameters that get provided from the Infoblox Grid over to the reporting server to produce this data set. And we do have a data model that documents what all of these fields mean and what the values contain. That's on our docs.infoblox.com website. Anything to add to that, Steve?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. This report is almost like the DHCP equivalent of the DNS query rate report. So it's kind of giving you those same metrics and be able to look for anomalies. And you can also create alerts based on those anomalies. So you can go further into the configuration there, and you can say, all right, I know what my normal traffic pattern looks like. If I suddenly see that double, for example, or a certain threshold, I want the reporting engine to kick off an alert and let me know that that's going on, so I don't have to come in here and necessarily look at the reports every day. So that functionality is part of the reporting as well.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, now for the number one report, we selected the IPAM v4 network usage statistics report. And this is kind of the number one thing that every network administrator really wants to know about their network, and that is, am I out of IP address spaces? Either on the network or on a DHCP range, right? Because that results in phone calls to the NOC, which results to escalations, which results to 3 a.m. getting up, and nobody wants that, right? So if we can leverage this data set to understand the utilization proactively, then we can prevent all that from happening. So this is super important to network admins. It also prevents resource conflicts in running out of IP addresses and clients not getting on the network. How do you get it? It comes out of the box and it's included in our dashboards tab. So let me go ahead and demonstrate this report as well. So heading over to our dashboard tabs, we are looking for IPAM v4 network usage statistics. That's the correct one, yes. Yeah, perfect. So here we can see, at a given point in time, what a given point in what a given network's utilization was. You can see here, we do have quite a few networks that are 100% utilized. They're very small networks, as you can tell, or some of them are rather, but some of them are quite large and are still 100% utilized. So we definitely want to address those as a network admin. We probably never want to see anything get to 100. That's definitely causing difficulties in connecting to a network. Now, what we can do here is we have all these powerful filters. We can filter by a network view. We can narrow it down by subnet. We can use wildcards as demonstrated here, or we can actually use CIDR notation, or we can leverage the CIDR filter here, right? So right now we're just saying, show me all networks. But maybe I don't care about the smaller networks, so I want to say, minimum size here is a /24, and this will remove, some of the noise of smaller networks that get utilized, possibly intentionally, like in a DevOps type environment where you're just trying to minimize the network footprint for each app instance. So this allows us to filter out some of that noise. Also, we can filter by utilization here. So maybe I only care about networks that are more than 98% utilized. This will again narrow it down to an even better data set here. And when we add those parameters, we can see it's really only a handful of networks here that need to be addressed right away. Also, we have the ability to separate by Active Directory site. So again, if you're leveraging us in addition to Microsoft, this is very powerful to be able to narrow it down by site. And then, of course, this data also shows the Microsoft data set as well. So if we want to filter it only by Microsoft servers, we can do that. Anything to add, Steve?
Yeah, kind of again, this really simplifies a lot of the manual operations. You don't have to poke around in the Infoblox interface and kind of glean these metrics from different places. You're able to get all this in one place from a simplified report with different filtering and options available, and then you can take that and export it as well.
Now, before we move on, we already showed you the #1 report, but because it's so related to this one, I just want to take a moment to show one more here that's essentially the same thing as this, but leverages our predictive capability. So this one can be found in our dashboards. And if I search for predict, so this comes in NIOS 8.1 and later. We've got this IPAM prediction dashboard. And again, this is similar to what we were just looking at. I can select by subnet or by a DHCP range. And what this will do for us is it will give us a predictive view of network utilization. Now, this is a demo environment. It's pretty static. But what we would see here is we've got our actual utilization trend. So in this case, there's no interesting information here. And then we've got our prediction here. So if there was actually upward utilization, this prediction would trend upwards. And we've got our threshold, which in this case is set to 80%. That's customizable. I could come up here and say, well, my threshold is really 90%, and it would move that threshold line after I hit the submit button. Now, what would happen here is if we had a scenario in which the IPAM or the prediction was going to exceed the threshold, it would show us the date for which that would happen over here on the right side. So this is a great report for actually leveraging the predictive algorithms that we've built in to get that IPAM visibility in the future to really predict when we think that that you'll run out of IP addresses. Okay, so with that, I will hand it back to Bob for our next polling question.
Yeah, and we are going to open up now again for a polling question. Roger, that was awesome, by the way. That's everybody on the call got a bonus today with that extra report that you highlighted. So that was awesome. Thanks for doing that. So here's the question. What is the most important reason at your company for using network reporting and analytics? We already asked that one. Maybe we can slide down to the next one there. Navneet, if you can move down a little bit, we can get to that. It shows what network reporting tools are you using today. So again, just pick a single answer. We have a reporting tool like Splunk, reporting tool perhaps from another vendor. Perhaps you use spreadsheets or homegrown reports, or maybe you just need to get some greater visibility because you're evaluating. So go ahead and lock in your answers there, and we'll give it just a couple of more seconds, and then we'll take a look at the results. Navneet, when you are ready, we can display the results. So you can see there that it looks like you're using a reporting tool from a current vendor, about 54%, and then Splunk as well. And then some of you are using spreadsheets and some are evaluating options. So again, thank you for that feedback. That helps us get some insight as we go forward. So now what we'd like to do is look at some reporting resources and opportunities that we have. Right now, some of you may know we have a promotion going on through I think this expires actually in August of 2018. So this is 50% off. You get a 50% discount for any perpetual customer switching to subscription. So again, this is our subscription promotion, and a previous perpetual reporting purchase is required. No active maintenance is required, however, and there's no min or max indexing requirement. This gives a prepay option as well. And if a partner is involved, the discount is included in the partner price. So again, this is a great opportunity if you're considering subscription and certainly reporting analytics, great opportunity to get a nice discount. In addition to that,
Bob, if I
yep.
could just add one thing to this really quick. So subscription is really critical when you're looking at that query logging use case that we talked about earlier and demonstrated in one of the reports, because that volume of reporting data can be very volatile in nature, and maybe you go through an acquisition and that increases the overall amount of DNS traffic on your network, which increases the amount of data that goes into reporting. That's where the subscription model really comes into play. It just gives you the flexibility to, at any point in time, change your indexing capability on the reporting side. And in that subscription model, the actual appliances themselves, the virtual machine appliances, I should say, are free of charge. So if you need to add more indexing, it's just a matter of adding another node to your cluster, and now you've got that sort of flexible expansion capabilities in the subscription model. So that's the reason we included this slide.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. That's great. The next slide also gives some additional information. We have our reporting and analytics free tier that's available as well. You can request that today, in fact, if you want to. What this is essentially is a software license that gives you up to a free 500 megabytes of indexing capability per day. And so, that's not a huge amount, but it gives you an opportunity to really trial and take reporting and analytics for a test drive. So it's free for subscription virtual machine or paid subscription with a physical appliance. And it really gives you control of your data, and it's really designed to maximize indexing capacity. So based on what your needs are, the 500 megabyte is the free tier, and then from there you can go up to 2 gig, 5 gig, 10 or 20 gigabytes, depending on your needs. There's also upgrades available for huge, highly active grids and DNS query and response logging, as we've been talking about, as well as sending syslog data. And then, of course, this is available for existing Infoblox DDI customers with active maintenance, and you have to be at NIOS 7.3 or later. So again, you can request this today if you'd like. That's available even on our website. So the free tier, again, is a great way to be able to start seeing all of the great data on your network. Steve or Roger, anything to add on this one?
Nothing here.
No, yeah, it's absolutely a great way to get started and take a look at the reporting and be able to, maybe minimize some of the indexing and get a lot of value out of it and decide if you need, additional volume to see everything you want to see in reporting.
Okay, great, thanks. So as we look at the next slide, these are just some additional Infoblox resources. So you can go out on YouTube and see just the Infoblox channel. You can look at Infoblox reporting and do a search there. There's lots and lots of videos out there. We also on the website have the reporting data sheet with some specifications. So if you need some more information about that, that's readily available again on the website. We have DNS query logging, and there's a solution note out there as well that gives you more information if you're interested in drilling down and really looking at the query solution that we offer. There's free learning videos that are available too, and again, those are available on the website. We have the reporting analytics deployment guide, and we just really touched on some high level peak tops really on the sample reporting book. There's so many reports available there, and so that is a resource. And then of course we'd like to invite you to join the Infoblox community. That's a great way to network with people, learn best practices, find solutions to problems that you might be having. And then we do have a reporting forum as well that you can join. So, I mean, some great resources that are out there in terms of what you can access. So if we look at some opportunities just in terms of what's ahead and where things lie for you, you know, again, you can take advantage of the 50% discount on the subscription promotion. Again, you can request the reporting analytics free tier to see the breadth and the depth of DNS data. And then again, as I just mentioned, we have the free learning videos, the reporting analytics guide, the sample reporting book, and then the community and the forum. And you know, these are great resources to help you know, give you some more information about what's going on your network. And so any other comments, gentlemen? We're gonna switch now, I think, to Q&A, but before we do, any final comments? All right, let's move ahead then. We've been seeing some questions that have been coming in. I think Steve's been doing a great job answering those. But if you'd like to unmute and ask a question, Roger and Steve are available to address anything that might be on your mind relating to reporting analytics.
Thanks, Bob. One quick question that came in from the chat, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, but they're asking if these slides will be made available after the session, along with the links.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Let's see, while we're waiting for any questions to chime in, I'll just kind of touch base on some of the other ones that came in the chat too. There was a question about if there's any additional licensing required, like additional Splunk licensing or anything that's, you know, responsible by the end user, and the answer is no. If you purchase the Infoblox reporting appliance, then that includes all of the necessary licensing.
One of the questions also that came in was, how do we get the information from the network? So we've actually built into the Infoblox Grid mechanisms to share that data with Splunk in the reporting appliance. So we have some mechanisms that we've built that talk to the grid through its native languages, and then leverage a Splunk forwarder to put that data into the Infoblox Reporting and Analytics appliance.
And I see another question too, maybe you can touch on, Roger, asking about the DHCP message rate and the time interval at 10 minutes. Is there a way to customize that or change some of the display intervals and what we're indexing and what we're seeing from a reporting perspective?
So yes and no. So on that specific report with that specific data, no. So it's the in the back end, the mechanisms that pull it out of the grid database and then forward it to reporting are sort of hard coded at that time interval. We do have customers that want to, and again, the reason that we do this is for the standard reporting solution. We're trying to minimize the amount of indexing that happens into reporting and make it a known factor. So in doing that, we sort of it's a known factor. It's an average over a point of time, so we know exactly how much data is going to be sent to reporting. So again, like with query logging, we have customers that want to do deeper type of visibility, and they're not necessarily concerned with the indexing impact. So one of the things that we enabled in the 8.0 version was the ability to turn on sending of syslog data over to the Infoblox reporting member. So with customers that want to have a deeper level of granularity, what they typically do is turn on that syslog capability and then architect a report around that data set that comes via syslog. So we do have customers that need deeper visibility into DHCP activity. So they'll send the syslog over and then construct a report around that. And if you have a look at the Infoblox Reporting and Analytics community, you'll see some of the reports that get contributed either by customers or our professional services engineers or our field personnel that are helping customers around that type of data in that more granular data set.
Right. So I think one of the key advantages is you're not locked into the the 100 or so canned reports that you have. You can think of those as building blocks to be able to build off of those, or even create your own custom reports based on the various data that's being indexed and sent into the reporting solution.
So are there any other questions? We certainly appreciate your participation today. We'll maybe just give it another couple of seconds. And certainly you can reach out to me or Roger or Steve if you do have a question, and we'll be glad to try and get an answer for you. And so going once, going twice, any other questions? Okay, I'd like to thank Roger Barlow for joining us today, and Steve Cello as well. And Navneet is on the call today, working behind the scenes to help us. So thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks.